Okay, so now we are all set. Thank you. All right, so file formats, for instance, this is a restrictor, a constraint that we put in, and it is organized with three different types of um, operators, you could say. The one that we use extensively is called file type. It's a restrictor for the type of file or the formation of a file like PDF, Excel, and all of those. I'm sure you're using it off and on, probably one of the more common ones. So I guess most of you are familiar with it. But the other two, which is the format colon and the ext colon, these are kind of depreciated for Google, but they do work in Bing. However, depreciated doesn't mean that they are non-functional. It's just that it's not preferred and it's not recommended, but they still do work to a certain extent. While we are discussing what really works in Google, we also sort of include some of these operators just in case. So not that I'm going to emphasize on format or ext. My main focus would be on file type colon. Similarly, in title, where we are talking about snippets, the type of search that we do with the operator in title and all in title, these two are going to find something for us that returns the information or matching words in the title part of the snippet. Okay. And what is being queried on the other side, or where the code is, or where the pages are exposing the code and the text within those codes. I'm just using the term codes. You could assume that it is, when I mention code, it means the tags or the labels where these sets of texts are encapsulated, or basically they are being fetched from the tags that have the name title, for instance. So whatever is there is being queried by in title. Okay, I think better organization is shown here in the slide. So let's just revert back to this. I think that this might give you a better overview. So let's just look at the snippets. The snippet part, which is composed of three elements: the title, description, and URL. We would learn how to query the title part with in title, the description, which is, you're all familiar with it. The description is a larger text or anything that is within the body of a page, the body being the middle portion. That's where the in text is going to work. In URL is going to query all those words that make part of the stem of that URL. So in URL is useful in so many different ways, and you can be really creative with in URL. Not many people use it because they are not exposed to the advantage or some of the useful ways in which you can apply this. So we will learn how to actually leverage this in URL colon. Then we have the format. I'll just focus on file type. We will look at format and ext in this area. Then the source, where we have to look for something that is going to give us more information about where certain pieces of information originally are coming from or where they are uploaded. We'll be using under the heading source, we'll be using these three type of operators: related, source, and link. Domains, of course, the site and the colon, and then there is a date range. Anything below date range that is highlighted with the yellow color, these are the ones that we will talk about. Date range for now is totally depreciated, doesn't work, doesn't do anything anymore, so it shouldn't be there. Cache, it works fine, so we can use it and see where it is more useful. Image size, If we get a chance, we'll look it up, but not many of you would have any interest in. Even in our search queries that we built, we don't use image size because we try to use another utility inside of search that's for image search. Proximity we have done already. So where should we start from? I'd rather start from file type instead of title, description, and URL. And then from file type, we will move on to title, which is part of the snippets, and description and the URL. So, and this is how the book is arranged. The first one that we tackle or we talk about is file type in the book. So I'm going back to the book. Okay, before I do that, maybe this diagram will help. Okay, or this one. Let's look at how the structure of the, hang in there. I think I have something here that would be even better. Okay, this one is better. If you can see this, you would you'll be looking at all these different types of operators. They are put together just so that we can describe or give you or componentize each individual mark or the text that is there. The first one, for example, this part in text or in title, this text is called property name. That is the jargon of people who work in databases, especially in textual databases. They declare something, or they say that certain words are to be considered with relationship to a notation that is followed by it. In this, in these advanced operators, you will see that there is a colon sign after these words. So in title, unless you have the colon sign right after it without giving it a gap, will make it an executable command of a sort, or you could say that it will make it eligible to work as an advanced search operator. So without a colon sign, the property name is irrelevant. It is in fact considered a piece of text or a single keyword. So the notation colon has to be after the word in title, and whatever follows after the colon sign is the property value, or what is parsed, or what is actually considered an object that is declared object against in title colon. Okay. Colon is very important in so many different ways, not just having it to become part of the operator, but rather it can work in so many different ways because it is a function. Function means that it executes something that the search or even the databases understand as something that it needs to act upon. So operator, we will use, or the function of a colon sign, we will use in a more creative way against some of the wordings or some of the files, let's say, or anything that we are unable to, or say the search is unable to archive or index, or somewhat is lacking a typical operator that would fetch that file type. For instance, certain file types in Google search especially are not going to be are not going to work with the file type operator. Okay? So when you are using MPEG file, for example, it's not going to get that. GIF, it's not going to get that. So if you type file type colon and then you declare something against it as a file name or an extension of that file name, that it is not going to work with the file type, it's going to kill the query. It's going to kill the entire query, or your query will just go dead, even if rest of it is correct. And I'll show you how that works. But most important for now is for us to understand some of the rules or some of the important aspects of these advanced operator. One is that anything that you put after the colon sign has to have a value or the property that is attributed to, or it is defined or can only be declared by the word file type and a colon sign. Like if you put text and not the file version after the colon sign, it's not going to work. In the case of site colon sign, the site colon says that there has to be domain name with the address that has an extension, which makes it appear like it's a domain that you are restricting or the domain that you want to stick to. So that has to have the extension like .com, .org, or whatever that is. Like it's not like you can just put AOFIRS and not put .org. So it has to be the website domain name that needs to be declared, or somewhat a domain name with a bit of the well, let me just explain it when we get there. It's a little bit ahead so that you don't get confused. While in title, in text, and in URL, whatever gets declared in terms of property value is a text or anything or any word that is textual. It is not something that has to be a format of any sort or a website address. So all of these in text, in title, and in URL, you can use the words or the text itself. Now, when we are creating complex search queries, we are basically adding certain sections or certain type of queries that actually work together, or they can be split up, or can be two different queries, but you have joined them together for the purpose of bringing, you know, for it to have a more precision in search results. So site irs.gov, for example, with the form 1040, and then file type PDF download. If I show you how, so we're right now discussing the structure building of the search queries that use multiple advanced search operators. So where is my notepad? I'm just going to bring this in my notepad and show you something. Now, if for some reason, if I feel that I want to break it up into two queries, it could be like this. So technically these can be two valid queries, but they are put together. So literally these are two different queries, and if we want to combine it together, it is more like A plus B. Okay? So this is what it is. That's the structure, nothing complicated. Now, what are the rules of building these queries? It has to do with mind your gaps first. For instance, after in title, for example, you cannot leave a gap of a single character. It has to be hugging the colon sign. It has to be right next to it. So even if you put something within quotation marks, you cannot leave a gap like right here. Similarly, no gap between the word in title and the colon that comes after. If you leave a gap like this, before the colon sign, the search would think of in title as a bird and not a not an operator that will work on John Smith. Of course, this is obviously something that you can look up. Nothing unusual, but just standard stuff. Similarly, for instance, if you typed file type colon PDF or the file type PDF you're looking for, you have to leave a gap of a single character between the next search term that comes after. That means that this is incorrect as well. So unless there is a gap to leave for the word to be separated or the term to be separated from PDF, you need to have that space. So on and so forth. So this is basic stuff. Okay. I want to get to the format colon to start with the query quickly. Let's look at file type. What are some of the ways we can use it? Now I want you to be very mindful about the itinerary of what type of, see, this itinerary is telling you that these are the formats or file formats that the search engine has indexed in a way that it would respond to your search queries with relationship to the format colon or the advanced operative file type colon will only work with these type of file formats that are listed here. Anything out of this file, and the format, as you know, is denoted by the extension which comes after the dot, for instance, SWF file, PDF file. So when you're going to write file type colon, you don't have to put the dot. All you have to do is put the extension so it knows it's a PDF. And there are so many different types of files or file formats, as you could see in the list, that are really very useful. But many people don't know about it, and they don't even realize its usefulness for research purposes. For example, GPX is a format which would actually work for finding the coordinates of a location, especially when you're looking at maps or Google Earth, for example. It has KML and KMZ files. So for anyone to quickly look for it or to find a satellite image somewhere with the date or the date range, they can do that with KML and KMZ because these are also indexed in archive. A lot of people don't understand the usefulness of Excel or XLS files. As you know, Excel files contain a lot of data, usually any raw data or spread out data or anything that is really massive, something coming from the government agencies, or even some of the research that involves compiling of numerics or alphanumerics, whatever it may be, as long as they're put in the Excel files, you should be able to query that. The advantage of that is that once you get that sort of sheets or those informations, you can actually parse that data, download it, use it in all different ways. And it is so much easier to look for them. I collect a lot of information from Excel, XLS files. Why people upload that? Why are they archived? Why is so much of XLS out there? There could be a lot of reasons for it. One of the reasons is that it is a public information, for instance. Other times, you know, where you find that, I don't know if you heard of it, ICIJ, for example, it sort of is a consortium of journalists that track assets or hidden wealth of people, politicians, or anything that is you know, kept offshore, or any of the kind of information that otherwise would require some sort of hacking. But for whatever reason, once they get hold of that information, it sort of gets organized and it becomes part of the database inside of ICIJ, and there could be others also that are doing something similar. So what happens is that it is able to scoop that piece of information for you. So some of the hidden information gets revealed. PowerPoints, when you want something specifically as a reference or some important points or some of the graphs that otherwise are expensive to get or to buy, and you're looking for some sort of information, stats especially, or the bullet points, you can always query PowerPoints or PPTX files. The least important for me from my experience are the notepad file that's called .txts. TXTs usually contain codes or something that people just leave out, that's not secure document, and it has a way of it as being exposed for the code or the open source that people sort of float inside of the internet works, and whoever is looking for it, they can go for the and or search that and just continues. But interestingly, as most of you probably thought that image files like GIFs, JPEGs, even music files, what are those? MPEG-4s or MPEG-3s, all of those, none of these are listed here. That means that you cannot search them from using the file type colon. But in those situations where the file type colon won't work, the work around it is just to use the colon sign. And I'll show you how the colon sign executes the command, because by default, it's an execution of something. It has an instruction set which is embedded in the data sets or in the database or textual database, which sort of reacts to it or delivers something or responds to it. So it has got a relevance of its own, and that, as I said, we'll discuss it as we go along. So let's look at the action part, or where the file type is being applied. Just so you know, if you're going to see the search work heuristically in a lot of ways, that means that it is not going to look at the construction of a search query as in a language sense, where it reads something from left to right. It just sort of looks at it from the perspective of what is set there, as if individually anything that is placed inside of a query has a relationship to each other. So it is more relational than considered in the organization way, which means no convention from left to right or right to left, but rather, as an example, you could see that if I have to look for CIRS certification, these terms inside of a file type PDF, I can put CIRS certification on the left, or I can put CIRS certification on the right. So it wouldn't matter much, but there are few instances where it makes a little bit of an exception. We'll deal with it if we encounter it later, but for most part, or you could say 95% of the time, this is what the convention is. All right, I want to show you something which took me a little bit of time to discover as well. Now, what happens if one of the reasons why we create these complex search queries or longer queries with multiple instances of, let's say, advanced operator, is to make it more concise, or to say not to break something into smaller chunks or smaller pieces, so that the results are restricted all the way through, and we get what we require in the sense of all the in the sense of how the response is in compliance with everything that you put inside of the search query as a single execution of a function, not in multiple steps. So I guess the idea is, for instance, to cover most of the information, or to get most of the information by running one query, which may be asking for comparison sometimes of two variables or two instances of something, or it could be addition or extending the query or making it more precise, add more context to it. Whatever the reason may be, the idea is to make it concise. And at the same time, we don't want to create really long search queries. So there is a sort of a middle ground. You just have to rationally evaluate it. And then there could be inherent restrictions of using multiple operators in the single search query. So let's just come back to the file type alone and take it as an example of what I just described. If you want to search for XLS file and PDF file at the same time, what's going to happen? Can you do that? Like in the same search, I don't want to miss out on XLS. I also don't want to miss out on PDF. So I want the search to deliver me the results that includes both file types. So I'm going to just show you the examples and see if it is going to get me some answers from you. Just logical answers.
Just plus algebraic sign, just plus instead of or, have plus for both of them.
Let's do it then. Why don't we try it? Let's see what whatever Simona is saying, if that's going to work for us or not. So let's look at, I'm going to just label it so it is going to exist as a reference. So the first query on file type, I've picked it up. I'm just going to remove the minus sign. Now I've got these two file types, XLS and PDF. Would this work, do you think? I'm just focusing on these two. Never mind if anything that is put in here as terms are in quotation or not in quotation. Apart from that, this is not as relevant as the concept which we are discussing, where we are applying the two file types. Would this work?
I would say no. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. No. Why would you say that, Jim?
Because they are, you're looking, it's assumed to be and because of the space, and they're competing file types. So you're not going to find something that's both an XLS and a.
So what Jim is saying, that basically file type is an absolute command, and when you are saying that it should look for XLS, at the same time, it is going to contradict the fact that the previous command, which is restricting it to XLS, is at the same time getting another restrictor, which is to do with the PDF, right? So it is kind of negating each other, or sort of canceling the effect of where one is saying that XLS, the other one is saying PDF. That's what you mean, Jim, right? Is it
Yes.
a contradictory command?
Yes, that is correct, and I believe Simona also had something to say.
All right, Simona, what do you say?
He's right.
He's
Yeah.
right, eh?
I
Okay.
think he's right. Yes.
All right, so let's try it first and see. Sure enough, you both are right, it seems. Now we insist that we want both of these to work. So how are we going to make it work? At least to the extent that you don't get null result. So if the query or something that you put in the box is executable, it will give some sort of results. Right or wrong is, or it is satisfactory return or not, it's another question. But when everything is nullified, where nothing is showing up, it means there's something wrong with the query itself, because it never got executed. So definitely wrong. Now I want to make it work. What is it that I have to do to at least get some results out of it? I can either
put a
remove
plus?
this.
I'm sorry.
Plus is out of question. The
Okay.
plus doesn't even exist. Is this this is Chris, eh?
Yes, it is.
Chris, forget about the plus sign. We don't use plus sign anymore.
Okay.
We just sort of use the quotation marks, which acts as a plus, or it is an enforced notation that we
Okay.
use for anything, even if it's a single word or it's multiple words to make a phrase. Anything that is put within quotation marks is an assumed plus. Okay, so coming back to this, I want to make it work. So the only way that it's going to happen is if you put the or operator in between, or the vertical. I'm going to use the symbol mostly instead of using or. So if I put an or give it a choice, what is the default action of search first? When you recall from the or, the concept we did, what or does by default is that it looks for both terms on either side of it or closest to it, or it just finds at least one out of the two. So doesn't that open up or gives a little bit of a breather, or sort of give the search the indication that now the search has a choice, and therefore it's not the like two absolute commands are contradicting or conflicting with each other. All right, let's try it. So I found the result. I got all the PDF files. All of these are PDFs. Invariably PDFs. But you're not able to find XLS, right? So what does that mean? That means it did work, but the PDF version took precedence over XLS. The XLS were never revealed, or at least in the first 10 pages. Even if I go to the 10th one, I won't find XLS. I go to the 13th one. Well, that's going too far. So take the 9th. Still, did we find any XLS? No. 8, XLS, nowhere. So why is that? Now that is because whenever you're going to, first of all, this query, the way it is constructed is correct. So understand that there is no error in how it is structured. There is an exception to what is happening where the PDF takes precedence as a file type which is considered more relevant, more important, or let's say it sort of masks the XLS file totally. Now, it doesn't mean that XLS is not going to be there. It's going to be somewhere, but it's not going to show up in the 10, 20 pages. It's probably going to be somewhere in the pages that's not even showing up on your search. Probably disappeared because of that, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Now, just take my word for it for now. Now, I want to show you a comparison. Now, supposing instead of PDF, I use another format which is acceptable to me. I would use PPT, for example. Would this work, or would PPT have precedence over XLS, or XLS would have will be preferred over PPT? Not really. It is an exception only with the PDF file. That is what is separating it from all other formats that you will search for in comparison to other format within the same query. So with PPT and XLS, if I do enter, let's see what's going to show up. I found PPT in the same search. I found XLS in the same search. XLS again, PPT, 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 and so it continues. So what does that mean, or how does that gel, and would that pose any questions that I can answer for any one of you?
I have a question, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I ran the exact same search, the original, the California Stroke Test 2015 statistics, file type XLS or file type PDF. And I received different results than you did. And I'm curious
Okay.
as to why that is.
Okay, when you receive different results, that has a lot to do with what we call the internet filter bubble. You are in a bubble, that means you are in an environment, or your geolocation or somewhere that you're browsing from has delivered to you the search results, which are not exactly going to be the same as mine, because I'm in Canada. The way the search is going to apply its implied context, which we learned, as you know, that implied context is not in our control as a user unless we understand what could be the reason why we are not getting exactly the same result. We probably wouldn't know how to overcome that barrier. So if I want to neutralize something, I have to look at three elements. One is my location has to be neutralized. Second, my browser needs to be adjusted for the type of searches I've been doing previously, so it doesn't impact or allow for the search engine to, use its own will, let's say, for delivering selective results. So there is a bias element in. And the third thing is, it just depends on where you are, but doesn't apply to you in North America, but let's supposing you were in Eastern Europe, or you were in Middle East somewhere, there is going to be filtering of some sort, which is going to be more aligned with the geopolitical situation, the censorship, and things of that. So this is where the results are going to be, or doing the same query using the same browser, but in two different countries will give you different results. Similarly, putting the same search query in a different language, would give you different results. If you are looking for news items, especially, the source of news, let's say, to be revealed or to be compared, or the itinerary of how it is set in your search, would have to have a more of a view coming from Eastern Europe, then you're going to use Ukrainian language to put inside of the search box. Another thing that you could do, and of course, then you will be getting different results compared to when you're using the English language for your search, for putting in or keying in those search words. So there would be these situations, and that's how it's going to happen. Your job as a researcher is to understand, evaluate, look at the scope of your search and the objective of your research, to know where you want to put emphasis on, how far do you want to neutralize your browser, or do you want to change your situation by using a VPN for getting across the geographical boundaries, or where the internet wouldn't really have an impact, based on your location. So you have to look at that aspect. And because I'm in Canada, obviously it is going to have a different results. If you're going to use incognito, you will have slightly different results from, again, using different browsers will also give you different results. So it just sort of goes on and on. But your objective, again, is based on all those elements I told you regarding your search, objective of your search. You will have to discover it on your own to know whether you are going to accept those results, or you are going to nudge that or move that in the direction of where you want your search results to be coming from. So a lot of times when I am trying to find, and I work a lot with Eastern, especially Ukrainian researchers, if I have to find research papers that has to do with, let's say, rocket science, not the rocket science, but rocket propulsion or anything that is the kind of words that, first of all, are considered to be more, let's say, especially in North America, using these words would sort of put me in a situation where I find a lot of restrictions, a lot of barriers to get to the type of information which I require, because it is to do with the defense industry, and DoD would put some restriction on the level of research papers I can get. So in comparison, or looking for something in that area for that subject, I would just go into Ukrainian or Eastern Europe, where they have a very advanced science in this area, or especially in this sciences of rocket projection and projectiles and things of that nature. I'll be able to get that information from there. And for that, I have to make some adjustments in my browsers, pretend I'm looking for some localized stuff from Ukraine. And the fact that I'll be using another browser, not the Google browser, instead I'd prefer to use a browser called Yandex, which is what is more of a, the kind of browser that sort of makes it bring more of the localized stuff or localized papers. And most of them are free, and that information is not highly regulated as in North America. So I'm able to get that information. So I think I've answered it more than enough for giving you a whole 9 yards of what makes the results appear different for different people. So for that reason alone, you would now, if we come back to what we were discussing, the idea is for you to see if we put the or sign here would reveal both types of files like XLS or PPT. Is that the results you're getting, a combination of PPT and XLS, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the objective of what we are discussing. So with the file type that is PDF, you don't want to put anything in comparison or anything that would, bring. Basically, it'll just make the other file format in comparison to PDF disappear. So you're better off whenever you're using the looking for PDF. You better off to not put multiple instances of OR with the different file formats. I can even extend this query. I can even do file type, and I could put say doc. I'm getting doc, PPT, all sorts of variations of this. Now, this was the main concept basically behind the file type. Now, if I have to make sure that certain file types do not appear in my search, what do I do? Can I do something with any of these file types with a colon to ensure that certain file types are not appearing? So for example, I don't want file type XLS to appear. Everything else is fine, but not the file type XLS. So what do I do? I'm just going to put a minus sign just before the term file type. Before it starts, I'm going to make sure that the minus sign is touching the first alphabet of the operator file with the F touching the minus. I cannot leave a gap here, otherwise it will appear like a dash for the search. So if I put a minus, it means it's going to bring me everything except XLS. Okay. At the same time, I can use multiple instances of file type. This is the beauty of these operators, that we have the ability to do that. So So if I don't want doc, I'm just going to put a minus sign. If I want to put anything, you know, so it just sort of continues, right? At the same time, there could be instances where I would want, by the way, would it be prudent to put the or if it needs to be compared with, or it should have two instances of minus file type? Logically, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you put an or when you don't want both of these? So usually you're not supposed to do that. Second thing that you have to be aware of when you're using or is that you are supposed to compare apples with apples in the sense of how the or the type of or how you're going to structure the terms on either side of or for comparison. Now, if I'm using minus file type, I can use minus file type here. If I'm using file types on either side, this is fine too. But let's suppose I use file type XLS and then I put or here and I just put the word doc, or I put any other word like I don't want population, the word population. Okay. So you're not comparing here the term which is actually to do with the operator that is executing the XLS or restricting to XLS when compared to the text or the textual format. So the format on both sides should be similar. That means I cannot use file type like this. I'd rather be using something like population or sample. I don't want sample or population. I mean, I'll be all right with sample or population to occur. But if I have to use the minus sign for these two, I'll just simply put minus population and minus sample. No need to put or here. Another thing that happens with the or is, let's suppose that you have put the term as it is set right now. The search might just consider statistics sample in comparison to population with the or. So what you have to do is you have to really separate sample and population as another instance or as part of the query that could be separate function, and it has nothing to do with these terms here. So you have to separate it. I'd rather separate it by putting it like this, so that now the statistics don't combine, the word statistics does not combine with the word sample. All right. So this is one of the ways that I'll be able to separate it. Now, supposing if I put 2015 within quotes and make this as one term, and let's say that this is another term that's outside of the quotation marks, it then has a tendency to connect with statistics sample as if it is one combination of words, and linguistically it makes sense also. So it sort of will kill the purpose. In fact, it won't be comparing sample with population. It might just compare statistic sample with population. It being popular, let's say, set of words together would have a meaning to the search as if these are two together, supposedly within the quotation mark. So another way for me to separate the word statistics from sample and population would be to put the word sample within quotes. All right, so that it sort of has given an indication that now sample is separated from the word statistics, and then sample and population will be compared. On the other hand, we can even do it like this. It would still do the same thing, which means even though a sample and population are enforced, but because of or, it gives the same results as it would outside of the bracket on for the word population when compared to sample, which is in quotation marks. So won't matter. I'm hoping that you are able to follow the way I'm explaining it, even though it is something that you will deal with eventually anyways when you're given certain complex situation to create search with or construct search queries. These are some of the things that you will come across, and you will eventually ask me questions. So if you don't understand it in one go, there will be, you know, more of the, let's think of it as a primer, and then, you know, you're going to paint more, put another coat of something, and just keeps until you get it all shiny and clear and showing as complete information set, because everything is, you know, sort of adding to your knowledge, but it is coming to you piece by piece. Sometimes it's a bit more hard to chew, so you could just swallow it, and then later on you'll get plenty of time to chew it slowly and digest it. That's how it is flowing right now. So sometimes more information, sometimes it seems that it's too much, but we'll get through it slowly and steadily. So we'll continue with the file type. The idea here is that we take one advanced operator at a time, and then, you know, just get sort of enough knowledge about it that the next time when we use it in complex searches, we know the concept so well that we are able to put those pieces together. Okay, we don't need anybody's guidance, we would make our own decision. That's where we have to get to. But unless we take one operator at a time and then really you know, hammer it, uh, we probably would be missing the conceptual part. So everything that will flow from now on will be itemized for the type of individualized or individual operator at a time. We'll do one operator at a time. We'll not be mixing many of. The only thing that we'll be frequently using in connection to that advanced operator is the OR operator, which means booleans basically, or the minus sign and the quotation marks. These three functions will always be working with, but we won't be doing like multiple operators or different operators, you know, advanced operators in single searches. Okay, so let's see what's next for us. There are more examples, and I have to look at them to see which one I would like to discuss so that we are not missing out on the concept. Now I'm going to talk about the colon sign to give you an idea of how we can do some searches just by using the colon sign. And this is pretty much like unconventional. It is one of the things that is not recommended by Google or any other search engine. But because of this extra piece of knowledge, it would help you in figuring out how to get to certain information which otherwise are not supported by any of these advanced operators. So that's the reason we'll use the colon sign. You could see that we have used it here. It's kind of unusual. I'm sure you've not seen a query like this one. Then we have another instance of using the colon sign. Here we have not used any advanced operator. Here is another one, and so it goes on. Most interesting is the file formats that you are unable to find, like PNG, for example, hard to get to. In fact, not hard to, because see, in your searches for images and for photos, things like that, usually you're given a utility inside of your Chrome browser, for instance, that is purely or supposedly only searching for the image files. But the algorithms of image search are different. In fact, it is a separate search engine which is integrated into the Chrome browser. It is giving you an impression that it is part of your regular search, or somewhat a regular search would be supported by using the image search with certain filtering and all that. The fact is that it is a totally separate technology. It has nothing to do with the search queries. Rather, it has a technology which is based on comparing images or looking for similar images. It has the ability to run certain algorithms which compare something with the existing file system or the existing database of what they already have as images, or the type of formats that basically are comparing the images with different factors and different ways. I mean, they're looking at pixels, they're looking at shades, they're looking at it's more like a Photoshop of some sort, or Adobe utility of some sort. But we know what it is, and we can talk about it at great length. But for now, we want to make sure that the image search that we are supposed to be doing with the specialized function in Google Chrome is not something that is supported by the search queries that you build with advanced operator. So hold on to that thought. Let's come back in 5 to 7 minutes, take a break. And when I return, I'll tell you what colon does and how it finds those image files or any files that otherwise are not supported. So that's what we are going to do with colons. Any questions for now on what we've discussed? Even if you didn't understand a concept, just give me a nod. You didn't, or if at least for I know the few things were complicated, and I know that I went a little far from what supposed to be teaching, sort of a same subject, but an extended amount of knowledge. So if you missed that one, don't sweat it, but just let me know that you understood or didn't, or somewhat have an idea. That's the nod I need from anyone of you.
I'm okay. I'm just curious. I don't know whether I missed it. What's the explanation why the PDF gets like precedence over the others in the file types?
It's what?
The PDF files, when we were talking about file types.
Yes.
Why is it that it stands alone compared to the others?
Oh gosh, I'll tell you, if I knew that story, I
Okay.
would be able to tell you exactly why. But thing is, and we can only guess, thing with the Google and all the search engine is that algorithmically they're making certain progress and they're evolving. It is a science which sort of has a very deep, arrangement with the artificial intelligence science, right? So it is actually, when you're talking about words, their combinations, intent, machine learning, all put together, the algorithms are getting tweaked, they're getting better. But the problem with search is that it wants to satisfy everybody. It is least worried about the accuracy and more concerned about overwhelming information to be delivered at a fastest speed possible to the user. And that's how they are designed. You have to understand what is behind it. So the notion that you get is that there is tremendous amount of information coming to you, but at the same time, what is delivered to you is left for you to filter out from, for you to pick something. Now, when you're talking about PDF, what they're doing in a way is they're making it easy for themselves. Google doesn't have a solution for it. The reason why PDF is coming, first of all, they don't recommend like multiple instances of file type to happen in the first place. That's what you will see, that's what they teach. Second thing is that when you do use it in multiple times, then they don't want the XLS files and the PDF files to have the relevance or ranking theory, well, I guess just call it the theorem, the ranking theorem gets affected, because everything is subjective and everything is interactive because of what is going to work alongside and what is going to create a conflict. In my opinion, PDF version is going to create a conflict when the ranking or the preferences are to play the part. If PDF is more valuable, it's going to show up. If certain words together are more valuable, they're going to show up, because the canvas we have or the amount of information that is going to come to us is limited. When they're showing 100,000 results, you're seeing 50 results. When they're saying that they've got 1 million results, you're seeing 30,000 results, as an example. So the idea is not to show every bit of page that is there. I mean, they're not going to pull 100,000 records for you. They're just going to give you 20, but make you feel that there are 100,000 matches. They have to pick and choose. They have to give it some sort of tune up. They have to give some sort of demarcations, some sort of maximum delivery of certain type of words against others. So everything is making a comparison. Now, supposing PDF is not as important as XLS, maybe their ability to look at the file formats as having higher importance is not granular enough that they can pinpoint, like if XLS has more value or the PDF has more value. So just might as well put PDF as more value because it is searched more, because somehow PDF has a higher ranking. So when that happens, everything else gets buried because there are more PDF files then. Similarly, two words that are more popular, they are going to show up more in the first 10, 15, 20 pages. And the other words which you really do need, it's not going to show up. So it's some of the decisions that are we can control, some of the ways we can restrict things. But when it comes to making preferences on the number of the preferences by the search engine for number of results to show up, where the restriction says that one thing has to have precedence over another, who knows? Maybe they like PDF too much.
Okay, thank you.
It's I wish there were so many questions. Actually, we ourselves are sort of working with see the way we work with Google and those kind of things, which includes other search engines, to find out, figure out, reverse engineer something, is to look at the results and then, you know, go back and see, you know, experiment to see what's coming based on what gets returned. While we are playing with it in so many different ways, gives us an indication of what is happening. I wish there was a book on Google that says, you know, how it works. They're never going to tell you that. Start with the colon sign. Okay, where do I begin? Let's start with the query itself. So let's suppose I'm looking for an image, right? The files that are not mentioned in the list that I showed you. Let's see, black cat. I want the image of black cat, and I want a file type that is PNG. Let's see what it's going to do. Even put it like this. Nothing's shown here. I use white horse. So it's not going to show me literally no results except for the people also search and all that. So literally no results.
May I
So what
suggest
if I just,
may I suggest you to go to images?
that's what I was telling you before when I was explaining about images. It's a totally different technology. When you're doing image, let's suppose if you're doing images, then you have to upload an image, right? So if you do images, you will get all these images, but thing is that it's a totally you cannot create a search query. You could just put the word and you could just press and images will show up. But let's suppose that you have to find something that is to do with building up a search query to execute with the snippets or something that gets returned as a, because this is a totally different algorithm. This is a totally different utility. It is different from doing our Google search. But what we are trying to do is we want to find white horse, but through snippets that would show up as search results. This images, what you're looking at right now is a different algorithm. It's not going to tell you details like a snippet does. And this is not like a regular search. So how do we do a regular search? We could just put things like, you could just put a colon sign after this. And I would then do PNG. Let's see what it's going to show me. Oh, I'm on images, sorry, to go to all. So when I go to all and I'm doing a regular search, this is what's going to do a regular search for you. And you can customize your search in all different ways. But if you do images, all you see is images. But let's suppose we want to go to a site that carries all these images. And we want results like these ones, as we are used to doing for the search. Then we will have to construct a query this way. Like we can't use file type because file type is not supported as an operator. Do you understand that, Simone?
Yes, I understood now. Yes, you're right. So looking in images, we get only images, which makes total sense. So yeah, sorry about it. It's
No,
just
no,
my
no, you're fine. You're doing fine. Please ask. Otherwise, how would you learn? And I am always available and pleased when somebody asks a question. It's very important. That's the reason we have this online classes. Exactly. It's not a one-way street where I would just be feeding you with pieces of information. It has to be like the way you are doing is excellent. So this is the reason. And Jim, you get this, eh?
Yes, sir.
All right. And okay, so this was one way. At times we do our searches. There are these examples. I'll have to get back to the examples. Like this one, for example, IRS form 1040. I don't have to do file type and then colon sign and PDF. See, whenever I'm doing file type with a colon sign, it is pulling the records that are captured as PDFs individually. So the link that it will take you to with the file type is the ones that has the icon like PDF on top, or when you click on the link, it's going to take you to a PDF file exactly, But when you're doing anything with the colon sign, it is not only giving you the links to the the ones that come similar to using a file type, but also it gives you results of pages that may have mention of PDF files. So you can get deeper into or find more information, if you, instead of, for instance, this one, take this one. This is a very simple example. So let's say IRS form 1040 : sign PDF. It's going to, let's see what it's going to do. It's finding me files that's going to take me exactly to the PDF, but at the same time, you see there are a lot of places where the icons are not mentioned. And that means that it would take me to places that has a list of PDFs. Like this one, for example, would have the PDF forms listed on that page. But if I did file type : PDF, I would only find the PDF versions, which is a direct link to PDF itself. Then we have few more examples here. I wanted XLS files, so US birth rate, census. Whenever you're looking for data, I would recommend just go for XLS and not just ignore it, because you'll be surprised the kind of information that comes up. So US birth rate, census 2013 : XLS. It'll work similar to the previous example, like it's going to show a lot of XLS files that will actually be a clickable link that lands you onto that specific file as you know, the with the icon that is there that says XLS on it. And at the same time, it'll also give you pages that has a list of XLS files that could be that could be another navigation that you can click further for on that page to take you there. So it opens up more of the XLS files. So basically, of concern for you is to understand the utilization of the sign with relationship to the file types. Transparent. So there is another operator, ext. I don't know if it works still or not, but we can try it. Maybe it's going to find something that is not supported otherwise by the search with the file type. So let me try it. We can run the same query. Let's see if it's working or not. I'm not supposed to teach this because we sort of kind of not using it in the new version. Because it's not recommended, but let's try it. And I'm going to put ext here. I'm going to put the capital letters ext. And let's say I put png. See what happens. It does work, but it's jittery. We can try it, and I'm going to try another version of that JPEG. JPG. Okay, so let's try JPG. See, whenever you look at, when you're reading your search results, please be mindful for you to understand whether JPG worked or not. Or I'm sorry, if ext worked or not. Look at the results. If you find in the results terms like ext must include ext or anything in here in the description that says ext or jpg, that means that it did not work. What worked is the word white horse. Okay, so it seems that the only way you can validate if certain type of operator is still executable or not is to see whether it is revealing itself in results as a word somewhere, because when it says must include ext colon, it's kind of saying that it is being treated as a word versus, you know, the operator. So it's not an operator, otherwise it wouldn't be mentioned here. So ext, forget about it. Let's not worry about ext. In fact, I would just not do that at all. So there are a lot of variants of this that you will be looking at when you go through the book, different queries that use colon sign. Next, we will deal with the snippets, or to have a better understanding of how snippets play the part. What's happening here? Okay, so we know in a snippet we have a title, we have a description, we have a URL, and we have somewhat touched upon where this information is coming from. So you could see that we have A, B, C, D, different areas or different elements of how this diagram sort of relates to the flow of information that's revealed or somewhat captured by using these operators. So the in URL has captured AOFIRS, in text is capturing everything, but a better diagram or a better way for me to explain this is to take you back to the to this diagram again. So it's going to be a revisit, but with a little bit of more information that we didn't talk about. On the right hand side, you see these boxes and everything here that we'll be discussing within the area that's kind of captured by looking at, you know, this bracket that we have put here in the red color. This is the body of text. In between, this is the header, this is the footer. Now let's look at the codes or what the search has read and basically indexed for you to compare with your query words. The title is using the operator in title with a colon sign. We'll talk about all in title anytime any of these. See, with the three operators that work within the snippet area, or what brings information and displays on the snippet, is obviously divided into three elements that you know of: title, URL, and description. But for the in title to work, it has to really correspond to the information that's displayed on the snippet. So when we are talking about all in title versus in title, and then in URL versus all in URL, as well as in text and all in text, the reason why all plays a part and becomes part of the operator is because all is indicative that everything that comes after the colon sign that has the word all attached to the, let's just call it the primary word in the first instance. Let's suppose it is in title and you put the word all right before it, so it becomes all in title with the colon sign. It still is an advanced operator, but works slightly differently. All just is including everything that is going to be after the colon sign to occur in the title portion. Similarly, everything, when I say everything, I mean like the terms or the keywords, whatever you put in. Similarly, in URL colon, where everything that is after the colon sign is going to be part of in URL, but when you do all in URL, it becomes a mandatory delivery of those words to occur inside of the URL. And same way, when you put all within text, it's going to bring all the words you put after the colon sign. But without the all, it means that whatever comes after the colon sign as the first word attached to it or hugging the colon sign is what is considered mandatory, or if it is a single search term, including the search phrase within the quotation marks after the colon sign is considered a single term that has to be returned mandatorily in the title portion. But you can at the same time create several instances of in title in the same search query, to break it into pieces or to break it into different terms that may be available or that could be in the title portion or within the title text. So that sort of ability for you to break it into smaller pieces, if it is not one long sentence, or it's not like number of words that are in continuation, and you want those to be present with different instances of the same operator, then you can use in title multiple times. But all in title you don't use multiple times. The only way you can use it is with the or operator, as similar to what we did with cite. So let's look at it. It's just conceptual at this point, but when we look at the examples, you know what I'm talking about. And we will show the differentiation with examples between the all, any word that has all in it, with all in title and in title and so on. For now, we are going to focus on the type of tags that play part in bringing that information in different areas. For example, in title is shown here in purple color. From the header side, it is going to contain information that is embedded in the title portion, or the meta title tag, we call it, okay? That resides in the header part. Then it goes down a little bit. Okay, yeah, so for the in title, it's only the title tag. But let's look at in text, compare it to in title. So in text is bringing the information that is coming from everything that is embedded in the tags, like H1 for the heading, the paragraph, the fonts and all that. So literally everything that is embedded inside of the middle portion. So this is where the search is going to do in-depth search and look for the different paras under the headings, the captions themselves. So that sort of makes the in-text work in the deeper portion of the page. Then the in URL means that whatever URLs are there in the header portion or inside of the body of the text, or we in the footer portion, all of these links are captured, and at the time of indexing, they're sort of pulling out the words that are part of those URLs to make them match with your search terms when you are using the in URL operator. So in URL is going to match all your words in the URL of whatever the URLs are available on those pages that are indexed and contain that word anywhere in its path. So the path of the link itself has got a lot of components, or basically it is giving an address to the landing page where it's going to take you. So while it's doing that, it is also putting in the words like the topics, the folders, everything that sort of is part of the URL with the words in it, or the text part of it will be matched with your query words when you're using in URL. Okay. The advantage of in URL and in text. Okay. Let's look at the in URL first and take that and I think we have a slide here that's going to explain. Okay, yeah, this is the one. Let's just see what happens with the in title when we use in title. If we are trying to find something in the title portion of the web page, we are asking the search, as you could see the way we've constructed this. After the colon sign, you could see that we have 4 words: internet, search engine, index. Now, when we use in title and put the words after it, which are not enclosed within quotes, and therefore these are individual search words, the words which is coming first, like the word internet, is mandatory. The search engine index is not enforced, but it is giving option to the search to bring any one of these or any combination of these words together. But within title, you could see that it has, in the title portion, revealed these 3 words: internet, search engine, but dropped the word index. That's because we didn't use all in title, we used in title. So making it more flexible for the search to find any of these words. But internet for sure is going to show up because it is right next to the colon sign. So this is in title. Now, if I wanted all 4 of these to appear in the title part of my search results, I would use all in title. And when I used all in title, surely I got all of these 4 words included in the title part. Now, when we are doing all in title, it doesn't mean that all 4 words have to fall one next to another or make it into a phrase. It's not, especially when we have not enclosed it within quotation, but somewhat these 4 words existed together, and so by default search found all of them one next to another as if it's a single search phrase. But just so you know that when all in title is applied, it can also mean that the entire statement, which is the title statement in the snippet, may not have it in the same sequence. So it may just show up like 2 words together, maybe 2 words here, the other 2 engine or index somewhere else, not, however, not being in the same sequence, but they will all appear in the title portion or the title part. So that's where all in title is going to ensure that all of the words exist, but unless you put all 4 of them within quotes, it's not going to show up in the same sequence. Versus when you put them within quotation marks, then all 4 will show up in the same sequence. But this apparently by coincidence is appearing one next to another, but still letting you know that all in title, or what it means is to include all the words in the title part, but not necessarily in the same sequence if they're not put within quotation mark. But when you do in title, it is you're giving an option to the search to drop any of the words that come after the word internet for in the first example. So that is the difference between 1 and 2. And every other operator that is going to be related to the snippet, which is in URL and index, will actually function in a similar way, or the rules of their application or how they are set would apply the same. So all in URL and all in text would work in the same way as I've explained in title versus all in title. With in title, you can also use a minus sign. You can use multiple instances of in title if you like. So for example, let's take this one. Let's play with it a little bit, or rather just take longer one, more complicated one. Let's take this one. By the way, in this query, you could see that when I was putting quotation marks, or whoever put it in my slide, notice how the quotation mark enclosed is left as if it is a quotation marks open. You see these inverted commas? They're not like inverse, or they're not like, you know, upside down to make it like closed quotation. So that sometimes this part gets ignored and your search doesn't behave proper. It's only because, you know, these quotation marks are so small. When we are writing queries, sometimes we are unable to see that. And at times when we are fine-tuning the query and moving the quotation marks, it somehow gets attached to the next term and remains open while we think that they're closed and they're not. So that sort of gives it a makes it faulty. Okay, so let's make sure that we are mindful when we are putting the quotation. So let's suppose we have a term Donald Trump immigration bill. Okay, so this is one term that we have put together, and then we have used the OR operator to compare it with another term. I think that this is a correct query, and we have used in title twice. I used it in comparison to, or giving it an option like immigration reform policy versus immigration policy. So if I have to make it appear better, or to make this work for me as you know, a better formed query, then this is what I would do. Donald Trump, put it in quote, and I would do immigration bill or immigration reform policy. Both might work for me, like both terms. And if I don't put immigration bill within title, what it's going to do is it's going to, first of all, ensure that the word Donald Trump appears in the title part, but not necessarily immigration bill or immigration reform policy will show up in the title. Only because when we are not sort of putting it with the in title here, we are not forcing it to become part of the title or to appear in the title portion. So what I would do is I will make it like this to appear in the title part as either of these two terms, immigration bill or immigration reform policies. But at the same time, I want the word Donald Trump in there. So this might be a better sort of, you know, way of putting it. If I had left it without in title in here as an option, then you would find for sure the word Donald Trump in the title part, but immigration bill and immigration reform policy will act as if you're searching for documents that contain either of these two anywhere on those content pages and not necessarily in the title part alone. So you'll get more results and not restricting these two terms to appear in the title part. I'm sure you understand the concept here, right?
Could I ask
Okay.
a quick question?
Yes, please.
Okay, I read, now where the slide that you're on right now, it says the all in title with the I can't remember what it's called, the colon will not work if you expand query with an or, because it's where it says creates additional restrictions in that. So can you still use the or with the all in title with the colon, even though you're looking for multiple searches of the same topic?
Yes, you can. So if supposing I take the same search query and I put all in title like this,
Okay.
then what I'm telling the search is to find this term, and either of these two terms, but all of these that are coming after the colon sign have to be available inside of the all in title.
Okay.
So if I didn't use or, it would include all of these words in the title. Okay, so it is all in title like this is similar to, let's suppose I get rid of or right here and I use all in title. It is the same as in title. That's it. So 2 and 2.1 will work the same. It's the same thing.
Okay.
But the advantage of in title is that you know, when you use in title, you can use it in a more flexible way. Like you can use it with other operators, like in URL you can add, you know, you can also add things like you know, other operators you can also put in there.
Okay.
Site, you can put site abcnews.com. You can do all these things, but if you put all in title, then you won't be able to do this. You won't be able to use in URL. It is pretty much, you know, talking about whatever comes after the colon sign. Even if it is an or sign, it's the only thing with the absolute commands that contradict each other. For instance, all in title will contradict the fact that you used site colon, because now in title will have to be, you know, working with whatever terms or the text that you put after it, and it's not going to entertain the site operator, or it's
Okay.
not going to work within URL. So
Okay.
it sort of makes it so much of a you know, a fixed command that it is not giving enough flexibility.
Okay.
And when you have let's suppose it's a sentence, it's a long sentence of some sort that needs to be broken, which you don't remember as a continuation of something, or it is an incomplete sentence but you remember fragments of it. So you definitely wouldn't, you know, you definitely would want to use in title few times, you know, to sort of make sure that those words somehow are there, or they may not be, all of them may not be accurately, or they may not be accurate. For example, immigration reform bill, and then you're going to, let's suppose, in title policy, then in title 2019. Okay, so when you're doing these kind of things where you have different contexts or different bits of information, which is not a continuation of something that says Donald Trump immigration reform bill and or policies, or anything that sort of makes it look like it is not a complete search phrase, or it's not going to occur in the way that you have set together, then you want to and you still want those words to play the part as a context, then you may want to break it down into smaller pieces which can be searched. So in title will make sure the word Donald Trump is in the title, and it's going to look for immigration reform or reform bill or immigration reform or bill separately, or the word policy, or the word or the year 2019 in the title. So you basically broke it down. Instead of making it into one long sentence which could be incorrect, you sort of broke it down so that these words are somewhat are part of those titles, and the rest of the title or the meaningful title that is there exists with these words will show up.
Okay. In doing research, would your opinion be to use in title or all in title more, or doesn't it matter?
No, in title is what you should be using mostly.
Okay. Okay.
There is no use for all in title really. I mean, in title makes it more flexible. You could, sort of, unless it is absolute, like for a fact that all of those words exist
Okay.
in the title part, and you don't want to leave any loose ends, or any words like reform, for example, or bill. Maybe the search engine wants to play with these two words, whereas the word immigration is absolute because it is right after colon sign. So because you've used in title, and these two words would become optional for the search engine, so it becomes more flexible and more results will show up. But if you use all in title, all of them will have to be there. If one of them doesn't exist in those documents, in any of those title tags, it's not going to show up, or it's just going to go dead.
Okay.
So you always want to have that flexibility given for search. So invariably, I use in title. I hardly use all in title.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
It goes the same way for in URL and in text. We use it based on the same assumption as we, captured the meaning for the in title. Works similar in a similar way. Okay. Okay. Now the next thing is to do the search with in text. Gosh, the time flies. Just too fast. Anyway, in text, as I told you, does most of the search for the deeper portions or within the paras, all that we have discussed. So what is its utility, and what is the practicality of using it, and why is it preferred in certain situations? Giving you an example over here in this slide, I think it's a good one. It should explain the concept. In case you want to know what this is one long search query. Okay, this one, first one, it is using the in-text operator with the word internet research specialist. Then the next set of terms is online research and business intelligence, in-text CIRS certificate. So all of these different terms I have used, but I've put individually each one of them as if they are not in continuation as a single long search phrase, but rather componentized for their occurrence or their presence in different paras or within the content pages. So essentially, we want all of these terms to be found, but we didn't use in title. Instead, we used in text. One of the reasons, as you could see, it is a concept that is not really suitable for the title alone. Second thing is it is fragmented as incomplete sentences, and it has terms in it which are pretty much, you can assume that it could be a continuation of some sentence or completion or partial completion of something. So for that reason, I've used all of these different terms. Let's just call them term 1, 2, and 3. So when we use 3 instances and we run this query, where would we find this information? Assuming that this was the result that came up, this was the snippet. And then in the description portion, you could see that these terms are highlighted, not in the title or not necessarily in the title, not necessarily in the URL part, but for sure it's showing up in the description portion. So you know that you're heading in the right direction, or you are perhaps going to click this as an option rather than others, because most of the terms are showing up. So how did these appear in the description portion? See, anything that's going to show up in description portion as a mandatory return or something that is visibly prominent in your description part is getting returned most likely or definitely from the in-text query. Okay. So what in-text did is that it captured my page, which was coming from aofirs.org. And in the first pair, when you click on this page, this is how the page is set. You could see it on the internet. User looks at it and sees that the first portion or the first piece of information, let's say internet research specialist, this word is showing up in the paras or in the text or in the portion of the page as information that contains all 3 words, like internet research specialist is showing in the first para. And on the same page, it is also obviously going to ensure that all of these words or these phrases are present in the page that is returned. So we have to look at the page itself to find where they are at. So in the first para, we found internet research specialist. In the second one, what did we find? We found CIRS certification. In the third para, we found, well, we didn't find anything in the third para, but in the fourth one, I'm sorry, in the fifth one, we found the third term, which was online research and business intelligence. See, if you, let me see where it's at. Online research and business intelligence. Where is it at? Or maybe they've marked it incorrect. I think it's in the fourth para. Online research and business intelligence. I can't even read it. Maybe it's better in the book.
It's in the first paragraph. It's in the first paragraph. If you could go back, yes. It's the second line. Online, oh no, it's just online research. No, I'm sorry. So,
No.
no, it's just online research.
Okay, let's open it in the book. I can't even read it. My glasses are not helping me. Hold on. Yeah, I can read it here. Online research and business intelligence. See this? A portion of it, online research and business intelligence. You see that this is showing up only because we have used in text. If I had used in title instead of in text, I probably won't find this information, or at least not this page. Or if it is a partial sentence or part of the para that is not complete, or it's not phrased as if it is, set in the correct language or in the way the language is supposed to be phrased, then it's going to find those combinations in the deeper text within the paras of a certain line or a statement or something that is, part of that para, but not necessarily one long search phrase. It is going to pull that piece of information for you only because you have ran in text. But at the same time, if you had used in title and that sort of wordings or the way that you have phrased it is not typically available as a title or part of the title, then the search will not find those pages, right? So this is why in text sometimes when even if I have to find something like learning events are most popular, let's suppose that I only wanted to find learning events are most popular, just these words. Let's see if the search engine is going to do it for me or not. So let's take this as an example. I'm going to run a query. The learning events are most popular. Let's see, might as well just go to a page and then do it from there. So if I have a page, this is incognito, okay. So if I have a page AOFIRS.org and I go to any page, what was the page we were looking at? I think it was probably CIRS certification benefits. So I clicked on that, and let's suppose I find something like this. This is more like a statement, a sentence, not a title. Most significant challenge of conducting internet research today is that there are numerous sources available. So let's suppose that this is what I select, and I use in text. I have to put it within quotes, so it has to be exact for it to match. If I put this within quotes, it's a long one, unless it has these wordings or the style in which these are set are exactly found in the title or in URL, it's out of question, it's too long. So let's try this one. Guess what I found? Most significant challenges, benefits of CIRS, my page, exactly. Now, if I had to do this with in title, let's see what's going to happen. Try it this way. Unless there is some page that has this as a in the title, it will come, otherwise not. Nothing. See, didn't show. If you make a wrong choice, or if you don't know how to take advantages of using in text, then obviously you're making a mistake. And for that reason only, I would say that, be very careful in selecting your operators. Okay. And so Jim, how is it going for you so far?
Going well, thank you.
No questions, eh?
No, sir.
Chris,
It's going very well.
You got the concept, eh?
Yeah,
It's pretty much.
What I'm doing is I printed out the booklet that you suggested, and I'm following right along with you with the booklet, making notes, highlights, and it's much easier to follow along doing that, understand the concepts too.
Kathleen,
Yeah, I'm following, but I would need time to like do some practice to really get it.
yeah, I was wondering if you had a question you can ask,
No,
or just
otherwise
making
I'm
sure
good.
you're
I'm
still
okay.
around. because who knows, sometimes I've had like many times I had to check if everybody is there. It's just the, you know, how that goes. Okay, so we have to do a lot of practice with in text and in title. I just don't think that we have a lot of time in hand today, but let me just review to see where we are at so far. And you know where the in text is picking up the information from, right? Like this slide, for instance, is showing you that it's coming from a tag that is, see, like a CRS professional will understand it's an incomplete sentence. You wouldn't think that it would find it, or somehow it sort of have very very specific words like CIRS, say. Professionals will understand. So it is like a shot in the dark if you have to find something that contains these words or would appear in the title or even in the URL. It's not going to be found there. In fact, you'd probably end up getting nothing unless you use in text with the colon sign. So this is one classic example. This is, see, it's not even a complete sentence, but just few words that would show up even if it's partially complete. And where it is coming from is the tag that I told you, like this one, for example. See this one, this tag is H3 tag, which is a subheading. See this one, less and H3, it starts here and it contains the title in H3, where H3 is getting closed. At the end, you could see the words or the text embedded in it is learning advantages of CIRS. So H3 has a significance for the search to match, and you'll get better results if you would use these wordings like learning advantages of CIRS. Even if you wrote or put somewhere in your query advantages and then put the word CIRS in title, you'll still be able to get it for you. Because H3 has been captured and kept as a significantly important words, and they would even match it with the title, and that's not a problem. But in the title part, these wordings, which are really part of the para, won't show up. More than likely, this will show up with the in text. So that's why I see when I put in text, a CIRS professional will understand within quotes. It pulled this piece of information, or at least the links that it brought you back would have somewhere on that page these wordings the same way they're set. See, so this is, and by the way, this is coming from another tag. It's a para. There should be a P, because this is a para from what I can see. Para means that these are the same fonts, the same style, so the search knows that these are, coming. This is a part of the paragraph, and the tag has an enclosure. So where is the P? Where is the P after this? Here. This is where it starts. So it is a para starting from here and then ending somewhere, anywhere. So that's where it's coming from. I think this should be sufficient. And then we have a lot of examples that we will work with. Like, for example, sometimes the description part won't highlight these wordings, or the ones that come back to you with using in text will not be highlighted. It doesn't mean they don't exist, because see, all this area is a real estate for the search. The SERP or the pages returned would put an embargo or put a limit to how many words can be set or can be pulled that are displayed in the description portion. So in text is going to return results in the description, but when you have multiple paras, sometimes it uses a format that you're looking at right now. Like, for instance, the 3 dots means that it is pulling Internet Research Specialist, this term, from one of the paras of that page. Similarly, another 3 dots in the same 3, because it's cannot put all those wordings in here in this limited space. So it is going to denote different paras that would have these words and highlight it with the 3 dots preceding those texts or those wordings. At the same time, be aware that sometimes it wouldn't highlight some of the words, and it won't like even appear that those are being returned in the description of snippets, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist. So for sure, they're going to be there somewhere in the body of text for that content page. After you've clicked on it, look for them. And even then, if you don't find it, or if that page turned out to be dynamic and it has changed, and because the search engine uses caching technology, that means it is not on time, or it is not in real time, that it is capturing information and then displaying it. For that reason alone, there could be instances where the page does exist, but it is not being displayed with those wordings. So you can open up the code or go to that landing page and go, view source and look for it. Don't get confused, just extra piece of information. Let's just focus on how it is displayed in the description. So in text with the colon will display it here. Okay. All right, Simona, see you, and everybody else also. It's 15 minutes over. So thank you very much for attending today's session. Brilliant. I really appreciate your presence. I'll see you all tomorrow. We have another session, and have a great night or a great afternoon or evening, wherever you are. So see you. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.